Hi and welcome to Share Your Difference. I'm Steve Randall, and on this episode we're taking a more holistic approach to the important audience that's made up of your employees and those you'd like to hire. These days people want more than just a job, they want an experience. And there's certainly a key role for your internal communications, HR and recruitment messaging in communicating what that experience is. But maybe you haven't identified it yet. And that's where my guest comes in. Welcome, Alex Marshall. Tell us more about what you do.
So I'm the founder of a business called Spot the Gap. It's an employee engagement and internal communications business. So unusually for someone in employee engagement, my background is marketing and communications. Most people in this area sort of come from an HR perspective. So I've sort of built up my career working across brand and marcoms, and always felt that the internal sort of communications and branding for a company was always ignored when brands were considering their purpose and their values. So Spot the Gap very much works in the space of spotting those gaps in organisations. So looking at who you say you are to your customers and your clients, but actually how are you behaving internally, and are your behaviours and communications mirroring who you say you are? And so in terms of my background, I've sort of been very careful not to pigeonhole myself in my career. So I've worked with a variety of organisations and in a variety of roles, everything from kind of sport to culture to gender equality to corporate business. And that's given me a wealth of experience and skills and opportunities, which have really sort of culminated now in what I do with Spot the Gap.
And are you seeing that things are changing? Because obviously we've got pretty much full employment at the moment. People feel that they have a lot more choice of where they work. And also the younger generation in particular are driving this whole thing of wanting values, and they want that from the products they use, the services they use, but also the people they work for.
Absolutely. So millennials are very much driving this area of work in terms of having a sustainable brand purpose with values and behaviours that align with it. So, a lot of people under the age of 40 now are more concerned about, having a purposeful life, both personally and professionally. Obviously, they want to get paid so that they can live well. Yeah. But, what is central to them is working in jobs that align with their own personal values. So organisations who before maybe had streams of graduates lining up for them, so I'm thinking really big corporate FTSE 100 companies, are now finding they're in a bit of a battle for talent with smaller SMEs and startups, and tech firms who are offering the younger generation more flexible ways of working. And they're also offering them more engaged employee experiences. So what I mean by that is they are offering people ways to get involved with their organisation that aren't just transactional. So this can be, anything from the ubiquitous ping pong tables and, free beer on a Friday. And so Google, for example, they give their employees a certain amount of time each month to work on their own specific personal technology projects in the hope that it will generate new ideas for them, of course. But, it gives people the space to do something other than their job. People really appreciate being valued and having, what they do and their time valued in that way. And if you feel as an employee that you're valued and you're appreciated and you understand how your role fits in with the organisation, you are much more likely to stay and also to work hard for them. It's not rocket science.
Well, no, exactly. And also, companies need everybody who's working within the business to get what the business is about. And particularly in these days of social media and word of mouth marketing, which is a big part of a marketing mix and recommendations, you need the people who are working within the business at the very least to be saying, it's great, I love it, and this is why.
Absolutely. So, I've worked with a lot of organisations from a brand perspective, so a customer experience perspective, and they spent a lot of time and money, mapping out customer journeys, customer interactions with the brands. And it's the same for employees. That's exactly what you need to do with an employee. You need to create an employee experience that goes from the minute you advertise that role to the minute they leave that job, and encompasses all the different interactions you're going to have with them. Because once they understand and once they feel part of your organisation, they will just automatically communicate the values of that organisation and the brand in the way that you want them to with your customers or clients. And I always think when someone leaves an organisation, that's the most telling point, actually, in terms of a brand and reflecting what goes on in an organisation. If your employees leave and still say fantastic things about that place where they worked and they felt valued, then that is absolutely, you've given them an extremely good employee experience. And that's what you should be striving for. I mean, talking about, let's say, the more established employers, so the really large organisations, I always hold up Timpson, the shoemakers, as a really good example of building a really strong culture that engages employees. So Timpson's culture is very much built around kindness, which I know sounds really naff and really fluffy. But what it means in reality is they track the success of that organisation each year on how their employees feel and how happy they feel, as opposed to their profit. So of course profit's important. I'm not going to sit here and say it's not, but they mark their managers and their leaders on how happy their teams are. And they have little things that they do every day. For example, they give parents whose children are starting school for the first time a day off. That's free. That's not taken out their annual leave. If you get married, you get a free week, either, before, after, or during, to do that. They pay for the car for your wedding. Wow. They also provide money towards the flowers. And they also have a fantastic scheme called Dreams Come True, where any member of the organisation, no matter who they are, can, fill in a form and write to the CEO and say, this is my dream, this is what I want to happen. It might be for their family, it might be for someone who's sick in their family. And the management team meet every quarter and sort of make a few dreams come true. So that's really some little things that they're doing. They're not huge, big strategy pieces or policy pieces, but just little things that make people realise they're valued and they're appreciated and they're noticed.
So that's a good example of a company that's doing it really, really well. Have you got any examples of the type of thing that businesses do when they get it wrong? I
think there's two things I would say here. So one is, I think there's a tendency with some companies to make employee engagement gimmicky. So that is where, the free beer and the ping pong tables come in. So it's, if we do that, then everyone's happy. And it's just, that's not true. That's just covering it up. You need to take employee engagement seriously and build, an employer brand strategy, like I said, which covers, from when someone comes in to when they leave and everything in between. That involves management and leadership and how they live the values of the organisation every day. So I think that's one thing that they get wrong. They don't see it holistically. They see it as like a little bit of an action plan with, a few tasks they can do every week to make people happy. I think the other thing that businesses get wrong is quite often employee engagement gets cut when times are tough. So, external forces mean that budgets get looked at, and often employee engagement is the first thing that gets knocked off, the team away days, the Christmas parties, all of that kind of thing. And I'd say, actually, that's the point at which you should be investing more, because you want a stable organisation when there's instability externally. And the quickest way to have a stable organisation is for your staff to feel valued and appreciated, and then they will stay. And so you don't have to go on this recruitment, we'll get on that recruitment wheel where you're spending £30,000 every time you need to bring someone new into the organisation. You're kind of hunkering down as an organisation, appreciating your staff, and they'll repay you in loyalty.
How about those businesses that don't really know what their values are? They haven't even established that bit yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, a lot of people have heard of Simon Sinek. And what is your why? So if you haven't heard of him, if you go on to YouTube, there's a TEDx talk. It's brilliant. It's just literally type in Simon Sinek. It will come up. It's the first one of his talks. And this is very much your purpose. It's your why. Why are you here? And also I always say, what would the world lose if you weren't here? Sometimes it's better to look at it that way. And your why is not, we're here to make money and we're here to make shareholders rich. That is not your purpose. Look at someone like Amazon, the most successful organisation in the world. Their purpose is not to make money, although I know a lot of people probably say it is. Their purpose is to be, the world's most customer-centric company. And they are ruthlessly efficient in terms of the culture that they build to make that happen. And, a lot of people say their workforce practices are a bit dubious. But everything that they do is geared around getting what the customer has ordered to them as quickly and efficiently as possible. And they do it really well. And as a result, they are an extremely successful organisation financially. So, your why has to be very much, what is it that we give the world that they can't live without?
And that's something which, particularly when we talk about older established businesses, they may have almost lost sight of why they started. And I suppose there's a process of kind of revisiting that and thinking, oh yeah, that's why we're doing this.
Yeah, and I think, when you're revisiting that process, it has to involve the entire organisation. It shouldn't be just driven down from the top. Quite often when the purpose of an organisation and its values are looked at, it's, the board of the organisation sitting around with the senior management team deciding themselves, who we are. And actually, you want everybody involved in that. So, if you're a B2C organisation, you want the shop assistants and the people who are out there every day talking to your customers to feed back and say, this is who your customers think we are at the minute. Is this right? Is this who we want to be perceived as? It's a holistic process that you will go through as an organisation that needs to involve everybody, and it needs to involve external stakeholders telling you who they think you are, because it's very easy as an organisation to be very internal about this process and just to think internally and review internally. But you need to understand who your customers, clients and potential customers and clients think you are and think you look like, and adapt accordingly.
And maybe in that sense, be open-minded, but also be prepared to be surprised, perhaps even shocked, because what you think your brand values are and what your business is about may not be what you hear back.
Yes, and this often happens, and it happens both internally and externally. Lots of organisations do a yearly employee engagement survey where they ask for feedback on the organisation, and I cannot tell you the number of leadership teams and boards who are shocked at what their employees say in terms of, do they feel that the organisation lives its values? Do they understand the purpose of the organisation? I mean, there's research actually that's come out recently that says only about 40% of employees in organisations actually understand the purpose of the organisation. So, there's an awful lot of work to be done internally before I think you can even think about your external positioning as an organisation.
Okay, so if we say that step 2 is contacting you and getting you to help, what would be step 1 towards better employee engagement?
You need to take soundings from what's going on in your organisation. So you can do that through a survey. A lot of organisations do it through monthly sort of culture clubs, where they allow people who are in maybe more junior roles to come forward and speak with a member of the leadership team about how they feel about working there, what they see as maybe potential issues or things that you do well. I'd say also look at how how your customers and clients are engaging with you on social media. What are the messages you're getting back from there? Are they confused? Do they not understand who you are? Again, that's usually a telltale sign that internally people are a bit confused as well as to who you are as an organisation and what your values are and what you're trying to do. So I think, you need to take soundings, use the data that you have already to work out where you might be before sort of bringing in a consultant, to have a look at it with you.
So how can people get in touch with you?
So people can get in touch with me on Twitter. So my handle is @LexiMarshall, or you could look at my website, which is www.spotthegap.com.
My thanks to Alex Marshall, and also to you for listening to this episode of Share Your Difference. My name's Steve Randall. You can subscribe to get these episodes automatically using your favourite podcasting app, or visit shareyourdifference.com.
Podcasting is one of the most versatile and engaging forms of media. And communication generation can help your business or personal brand unlock its powerful potential. Find out more at communicationgeneration.co.uk.